she talked about the three ways that she cultivates new relationships whenever that first conversation is started. It's through invites, insights, and introductions. Welcome to I Hope This Email Finds You Well, Strategies and Tactics Edition, a business development podcast for business development professionals. I'm Neil Barrow. I'm the founder of Enabled BD. And the last episode that we had on the interview was with Alissa Kolm. Man, I, I love all my episodes, but I love this one in particular because we kind of took some time to stay in the details around how she does two things really well. One is add value. And what does that actually mean? We hear a lot of add value to our connections, to our prospects, to our clients, to our referral sources. But what does that actually mean? And then she talked about her drop-in tactic, which is old school and still works today. I think it's a little harder because you've got locked doors, remote work. There's some barriers to doing that still, but it's still hyper effective when done intentionally and strategically and consistently. And so let's talk a little bit about that. So when we think about adding values, specifically starting with adding value, what is the definition of that? I think she did a great job sharing how when you're just starting out in business development, you don't really have a big network or a way to add value. And so if you're just getting started, she was like, I want to be the connector. And so she was connecting people, which is still like a core tenet of being a good business developer, is making introductions, being the one that's going to pull forward valuable introductions for your network. And then she also did event invites. So if you're part of an association, if you're putting together an event, if you're going to an event, making sure that you're inviting people to that event. I think that's a big key point that she had made, is how do we convert that into actually a value add for our network. She mentioned something really interesting that goes into the drops, which is the next subject that we're going to talk about, which is joint calls with COIs. So I think it's really interesting. I did a lot of that in my business development career, where I'd have key relationships that we would go and have set up meetings for each other to go out, and we would do a joint call day. And so I would go out and set meetings with clients, referral sources, prospective clients. They would do the same thing, and then we'd spend almost a full day together going to meetings that we had scheduled, usually 6 weeks or so in advance. And so when we think about adding value, it's being the connector, it's inviting people to events that they might enjoy, and it's bringing COIs to joint calls and scheduling those call days, which really requires you to have really great relationships with great other business development professionals or other professionals in the market. But when we think about going and dropping in, so telling you a little story about my ADP days. So for those of you who don't know, I started my career in sales at ADP. And what that taught me outside sales was a lot of things. But one of them is we would have our drop list every week. And so we would pick 15 companies. I would usually prepare it Friday or Sunday before the following week to outline who I'm going to drop into, and then going ahead and creating a map with the most efficient route. And so every Monday I would go in, and that was my drop day. If I didn't have that drop day on Monday, then it would be on Tuesday or sometime during the week. I would have it blocked on my calendar. But every week I was going and walking in physically to businesses that I did not have a relationship with, that I wanted to meet the owner, the CFO, the controller, whoever was there. And so I think when you're looking at creating a drop off, do you do any drops? Alissa made a great point where she is old school and she just goes and grabs cookies to deliver to the CFO, the point of owner, the point of contact that she's trying to get in front of. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But what that does is that allows you to try to open the door to that first conversation to then cultivate that relationship. I think one of the other things that she mentioned that was really good is, do we have the COIs, just like with joint calls that we would schedule with a referral source, a tight relationship that we have, is are we scheduling joint drop days? It makes it a lot easier if you can go with, let's say you're in business development and accounting, or business development in consulting or financial services, architects, engineers. Like, can I find someone that is aligned with me to the same types of clients that we could schedule a joint day to go out as a team to go and drop? So Alissa was saying that she would go out when she was in financial consulting, she would go out with her favorite banker and they would go and drop cookies off to CFOs at prospective clients to try to find a way to crack that door open to a first conversation. And so I think joint drop-offs with two prospects is a great way to get started if you're uncomfortable doing it yourself, or you know that you know yourself and you're not going to schedule it because it is uncomfortable. So can you find a teammate that's going to make it a little bit less uncomfortable? She does a lot of cold outreach too. And so when she thinks about her week and scheduling her week, cold still works. And so it's part of a healthy, balanced diet of business development. So if I'm not doing cold outreach, I need to incorporate that into my week every week. And so how do I do that? Well, she made it easy where she was reaching out to COIs as well as prospective clients. So if you get a lot of great referrals from financial advisors, bankers, anybody in the business, anybody in the professional services community, making sure that you know who you don't know that you want to know, and then you can reach out to them to start that conversation. It's a lot easier to go get a coffee meeting with an attorney, a banker, a CPA, a financial advisor, a consultant than it would be with a new prospective client. And so how are you using your cold outreach time to do that, to generate new referral relationships? And then it's really centered around the ultimate goal is to find a way to create that first touch point, that first conversation that will open the door to developing a strong relationship over time. And she talked about the 3 ways that she cultivates new relationships whenever that first conversation is started. It's through invites, insights, and introductions. I just made that up. But invites, how do I invite people to networking events, to events that I'm hosting, to things that they would like to go see, whether it's entertainment or something that I'm hosting or an organization association's event? How am I inviting those people and understanding what they actually value or what they might find valuable to invite them and use that as an excuse to reach out and to add value? The next one is insights, where it's if I'm providing any specific industry insights, if there's a news article, if there's an industry insight from a publication, if there's a new launch of something that they might find interesting, am I sending that insight to them to stay in front of them instead of just, hey, checking in, let's go catch up? The next one is introductions. So have I met anybody this month, this quarter, that I feel like would be a good introduction? And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to ask them permission to make the introduction. Hey, I know that you're probably thinking about your accounting team internally. I met someone who's actually looking for work. Are y'all looking or hiring? Would that make sense? Hey, saw y'all posted for a job. Would like to learn more about this so I could be helpful as I'm talking to my network. Hey, I made a great introduction into a software company. I don't know how y'all are doing it, but it was really cool. Is this something that y'all are looking into? So how do I proactively think about introductions that I can make for my network? And then we talked about adding value, all of this outreach, doing drops, and she's really focused on creating accountability to following a plan. We come into the week and our week can blow up at any time with new opportunities, follow-ups, client issues, personal issues. So our week can blow up at any point. We need to make sure that we have a very tight plan. So when I come into the week, I have my calendar blocked for my drops, for my cold calls, for my meetings, we need to make sure that we are actually doing this. So when I sit down at my desk and it's time for me to execute on business development, I know exactly where I'm going to be spending my time, who I'm going to be thinking about, and what activity that I'm going to be doing. And so we can create that accountability. She talked about writing novels after she's met with people because it helps her stay accountable to that conversation and remember what's going on and what she needs to do. And so how do we keep accountability to that plan, either through a spreadsheet, a CRM, or email? We have tasks that we can create, but we've got to create this accountability and consistency for us so we don't go 2 to 3 weeks without doing the things that we know we need to be doing to generate conversations, which is cold outreach and drops and building our referral network by adding value. So we talked today about the add value definition. What does that actually mean and what can we be doing? And then we talked about that specific tactic that Alissa talked through on how she does drop-ins to initiate a conversation to then build upon that relationship. So take some of these nuggets, try it out. I know maybe a lot of you haven't done drop-ins, so try it out. What are the list of the 5 prospective clients that you would love to meet? Go grab a box of cookies, show up with nothing. Just ask, hey, I'm looking to meet the CFO. I'm looking to meet the owner. When are they typically in? Talk to the front desk. Try to figure out how you can crack that door open in a conversation to start building that relationship. So try it out. Be an intentional connector. Invite to events. Try a joint call with a COI. Go to your favorite referral source and say, hey, why don't we plan a day where we can go out and make drops, where we can do some joint calls. I'll try to schedule some meetings. You try to schedule some meetings and we'll go together. So try some of this out because it works. I've done it. Alissa shared some great stories on how she's done that. So try it out today. So I encourage you to try one of these strategies and tactics out. Send me a message on LinkedIn. Let me know how it goes. Would love to hear some results from what you've done, whether that's getting kicked out of a building or it's actually getting a result of generating a conversation that matters. Please join me next time as I'll interview Kate Hall, who's a business development principal at Embark. That's one that you won't want to miss. Thanks for watching.